Today in this YouTube video, I am going to be talking about some of the signs that could indicate that you have a karmic contract with somebody, or you have a karmic contract in your life. We're going to go through some of the signs. Maybe you are somebody who's wondering, do I have this sort of relationship dynamic in my life? You have a nudge that it might be karmic, but you're not too sure. Then in this video is probably going to be for you. For me, karmic contracts, was something that I experienced a lot as a child. So my entire childhood, I felt like there was something strange that was going on, that there was a connection between me and the people around me. So for me, I've had a little bit of experience with karmic contract ever since I was a child. And having a karmic relationship with somebody means that, you have a sort of strong connection with this person. Like whether this person is a friend or a partner or a family member, it feels like you have a very strong connection with them. This connection sometimes feels instant, it feels very strong, it feels like familiar, like, oh, I know that I've experienced this type of energy, this person's energy, this vibration before. It's like very familiar. And you can feel like you are connected to the person with like a cord that's like attached from you to the other person, and it's like this cord that kind of won't like cut off. Like, whatever you do, it feels very difficult for the cord to actually cut. And sometimes you can actually feel this cord. It feels like an invisible thread between you and the other person. I had this experience once which really like reassured me that yes, what I was feeling for many years, thinking that yeah, something is karmic between me and that other person, I felt like the universe was confirming that to me. So I remember this one time I was like sort of like sleeping. I had like a dream, or I think I was like astral projecting. Something was happening in my dream where I was aware of what was happening, but I was also aware of what the other person was doing. I was asleep, but the other person was awake, and it felt like I was so connected to this person by, like, as I said, like an invisible thread or something, where it felt like I could actually tell what the other person was doing, like in their waking hours. And I could tell that the person was, not asleep. I was asleep, but I could, the connection was just so strong. And I remember just thinking after that dream, like, wow, I actually do have a very strong connection with this person. This relationship is karmic. And I remember just thinking about it and being like, yeah, I felt this my entire life, but the universe is kind of like confirming this to me, which is really interesting. The next one is that it's oftentimes a very chaotic and toxic type of relationship that you have with this individual, with this person. It can feel like when you have a karmic, contract with somebody, it can really feel like you are just like going through a storm. Like it's whatever the relationship dynamic is, it's very chaotic and it's very difficult for you to set boundaries. That person will test your boundaries, they will trigger you, but they'll push you, they'll really push you and test your boundaries a little bit. It's very hard for you to communicate your needs. It's a lot of like sometimes abuse that happens in this type of relationship, emotional abuse, physical abuse that can happen in these types of relationship. And it just feels like, it's just the opposite of peace and safety. It feels unsafe, it feels ungrounding. Your nervous system is just like erratic all the time, or it's like out of sorts. You just feel so unsafe, you feel uncomfortable, you feel like, whatever this is, it just feels like it's not peaceful. Just so much is happening, and all of these things can sometimes shift a person into seeking healing. Level of suffering and pain that is oftentimes caused in this karmic relationship that can kind of get you to seek healing and seek um, peace and the opposite of everything that this relationship is providing you. But truly, it's like this type of relationship will sort of awaken you. It will spark something within you where you are like, have to kind of go and like heal yourself, or you have to like seek healing, or you have to seek some sort of help with all the pain and suffering that is oftentimes caused in this relationship dynamic. The third one is, no matter what you do, it's very difficult to escape this type of relationship. Karmic relationships are oftentimes there to teach us things, right? Our soul really knows exactly what we need to learn, and oftentimes we kind of like write in a karmic contract into our soul contract, which means that we are experiencing a karmic contract because we need to experience a karmic contract. We need to learn a couple lessons. We need to learn certain things about ourselves. We need to learn certain things about life. And so we kind of write a karmic contract into our lifetime experience. Oftentimes in these types of relationship, you can find that there's a lot of lessons that need to be learned. There's a lot of soul lessons that need to be learned and integrated. And so that is why you attract the karmic contract into your life. And a lot of times the other person that is in this whole situation was probably a person that you had experienced a very similar situation with in your past life or many lifetimes ago. Like you were probably the one causing that person pain, and this time around that person is kind of causing that towards you. And but it can really feel like you and the other person are put together and both of you are just in hell, and you are like stuck in hell, because no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you just cannot escape this type of relationship. You have to learn the lesson. The lesson needs to be learned in these types of relationship. If you don't learn the lesson, then they repeat themselves. They go in loops, and that oftentimes is what can cause a lot of pressure. So oftentimes and sometimes we're not even aware that we have these kind of karmic contracts in our life. And so what can happen, what can really play out, is that you can find that no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, these types of relationships are something that you cannot escape very easily. It's like the universe kind of like slaps you on the head, tells you, okay, you know what, you need to sit down, you need to pay attention, you need to realize that you are in a karmic contract with this person. You need to realize that there are certain lessons here that needs to be learned, and then we can like speak about moving on, moving forward, right? But you need to learn the lesson. And it really feels like every time you try to escape, the universe will bring you back to this person, to the situation, to the relationship, so that you finally learn the lesson. And as I said, you are oftentimes stuck in a lot of loops when it comes to these types of relationships. Sometimes it's so evident and so clear. I remember for myself, but in my childhood, being like really young and experiencing these types of things happen, I remember thinking to myself, like, it feels so fabricated. Like this relationship dynamic, there's something really off about it. It doesn't feel like your usual relationship dynamic, but there was something off-putting about it. It really felt like, for me, I was kind of catching on that it was sort of fabricated, that there was something about this that just felt like I was stuck in a movie experiencing this type of like relationship dynamic with these types of individuals. And it just felt like it seems fabricated, it seems unreal, it seems fake in a way, because there's certain themes that I was experiencing over and over and over again, where it felt like like something just, it feels like I'm stuck in like a play or like a movie, because it's so like, it's so unreal. It just feels like it's like so clear sometimes that yes, something is off, like something here that needs to be learned, or there's certain themes that like sometimes it's in your face. These themes are like in your face, like you need to learn about self-forgiveness, or you have to learn about self-worth, self-love. And a lot of times these relationships will show you the opposite of all of that, so that you finally get to learn the lessons that you need to learn. So for me, realizing that certain themes were playing out in loops, like it was repeating itself, and I was like, okay, like this has to like this has to kind of like end. And I think that once I said this to myself and I put it out there into the universe, I set it as an intention, then I noticed that a lot of things changed in the relationship dynamic. So For me, I realized that how I was coming out of the karmic contract was truly by being aware that, first of all, I was in a karmic contract, and these themes were very much like repeating themselves, and they needed to be learned. These things in my life needed my attention, like the fact that it was repeating itself. It meant that the universe wants me to pay attention to it, wants me to catch on that there's something here, there's a lesson here, there's, it requires some attention. The last one is you grow through a lot of the discomfort. So karmic contracts are not comfortable, they are very, very intense. And for me, my karmic contract sparked a spiritual awakening because of how intense they were. And I know for a lot of people this has been their reality as well. And you'll find that karmic contracts are placed to do something for the soul, to put the soul through something, some sort of challenge, some sort of hardship, difficulty, so that they can sort of awaken, or they can, like, learn certain lessons. But that growth, it has a price. There's a lot of pain that is experienced first, and then there's growth that comes as a byproduct of that. But as I said, like, these contracts, having a karmic contract with somebody, can really bring you to your knees. It can bring you to your knees, praying to the universe for help, and praying to be cut off from this karmic contract, praying to finally be released and survive through this relationship that you've gone through. And a lot of times people have spiritual awakening because of how much pressure is put on them from the pain, from the suffering of this type of relationship dynamic. Some people will just like seek healing. The pain that they face in this relationship, it's so intense that they kind of have no other choice but to kind of like seek healing, right? And you'll find that your growth and expansion comes from a lot of the hardship that you experience in this type of relationship. Even though karmic contracts are very intense, but they are placed there for your growth. It's placed for your evolution as a soul, for the betterment of yourself. But it takes some time to understand this. It takes awareness to realize that, first of all, you are in a karmic contract. You have a karmic relationship with this person, that there are things that need to be learned and integrated. And when that awareness is not there, and you spend years just going through it, like with the person, stuck in loops, stuck in lessons, then that's when it can get very, very difficult. So having the awareness that, yeah, you have a karmic contract is very, very important. And also, forgiveness is one of the main things, one of the, I would say, the most difficult and also the most effective way to cut off a karmic contract from the person that you have had this relationship with. And that can be very difficult because, as I said, the relationship can be so chaotic and so toxic. There's a lot of things that happen in that relationship. It's very hard for somebody to come out on the other side and say, yes, I forgive the other person. But you realize that, okay, this is a karmic contract. This was meant to be. The person was meant to have this role, and I was supposed to have this role, and we were supposed to play out this dynamic, and I was supposed to learn lessons. I was supposed to integrate these lessons. And once that awareness is there, that, yeah, you had to go through something to, grow as a person, then forgiveness is not something that's difficult. Forgiveness comes easier. And oftentimes the anger, the resentment, the hate is replaced with forgiveness and compassion. And forgiveness is not easy, but it is very possible. It is very, very possible. And once that forgiveness is there, then you will be able to see the other person through the lens of compassion and empathy. And that, for me, I know for myself, going through that experience myself, I never really thought that I could ever be a person who would have a lot of compassion and forgiveness towards the other person who I've had a very intense karmic contract with. But now, like, being on my healing journey for a couple of years, I know that forgiveness is possible. And I think that to some degree, I've allowed myself to let go of a lot of the resentment, and realizing that a lot of that pain and resentment and anger is now being replaced with compassion and love and empathy for the other person, which can be a journey, it can be a process. This takes years to be able to chip away at all of that pain and to work through all of that pain. It can take a long time. And as I said, karmic contracts are there for you to learn the lesson. But first of all, having the awareness that you have a karmic contract with somebody is very, very important. And then taking the steps to then, forgive, like learn the lessons, forgive them, and work through that karmic contract so you can free yourself from that karmic contract. For somebody who has had your own karmic dynamic, karmic contracts in your life, I would like to hear more about it. So you can, put some of your comments in the comment section down below. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for receiving today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.